Welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're heading back to the world of 1990s Italian football.
Ooh, exciting.
A period in football when money was no object.
Yeah.
Rivalries were intense, and the world was watching.
It was a fantastic time to be a fan.
It was a fantastic time to be a fan indeed, and our subject is Gianluigi Lentini,
Oh, wow.
a name that some might not instantly recognize, but trust me, his story embodies the real highs and lows of the game.
For sure.
And, you might not remember the name, but you'll definitely remember the price tag because
Yeah.
for a time,
Yeah.
he was the world's most expensive player.
I mean, that's kind of leave a mark, hasn't it?
It certainly does. So that really begs the question, how did a young star who reached such incredible heights end up playing in front of just a few thousand fans?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? It's a really fascinating story, and it goes so much deeper than just what happened on the pitch.
Right.
Lentini's journey really kind of captures the whole spirit of the era. If you think about it, Italian football back then was just pure spectacle. It was a whirlwind of ambition, and money and these ferocious rivalries.
Yeah. And Lentini, this electrifying winger for Torino,
Mm-hmm.
he was right in the thick of it.
It was.
He was a breath of fresh air
Absolutely.
in a league known for being very tactical and very disciplined.
Rigid.
Rigid, exactly. So instead of, rigid formations here, was this dazzling talent with real flair that could just ignite a match.
And his talent, it was undeniable, a natural instinctive ability that really set him apart from the rest.
And it's almost like legendary status now, but
Right.
there's that story of the match against Inter Milan
Oh, yeah?
where he absolutely outclassed Andreas Brem.
Oh, God.
Brem, a World Cup winning defender, considered by many one of the best in the world.
I mean,
And Lentini just made him look ordinary.
unbelievable.
Torino won that match 2-0, and everybody was talking about Lentini.
Yeah, I bet they were.
You could say that was his arrival on the world stage.
I think you're right. That definitely put him on the map.
It did, and that actually coincided with Torino's incredible run in the UEFA Cup that season,
It did, didn't it?
propelled by Lentini's, brilliance.
Of course.
They fought their way to the
I mean,
final
the final against Ajax.
against Ajax.
Which they sadly lost.
Sadly, they did.
Yeah.
And it's said that, that pain of defeat stayed with Lentini throughout his career, really.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But that UEFA Cup run, as heartbreaking as the final, was really catapulted Lentini into the spotlight.
It did. And it wasn't long before the big boys of Italian football came calling.
The Giants,
The Giants.
with their checkbooks ready.
And this is where the financial drama really kicks in, doesn't it?
This is where it starts. So we got
Oh.
Torino's president at the time, Gian Mauro Borsano. He was a man known for his ambition, but perhaps not for his financial prudence.
Okay.
So he'd invested heavily in the squad. He wanted to build a team that would, challenge for the top honors.
He wanted to win trophies.
He wanted to win trophies, absolutely.
Yeah.
But those ambitions, combined with perhaps some questionable financial decisions, led to a situation where Torino were under immense pressure to sell.
Right, I see.
Enter Juventus and AC Milan, two of the biggest clubs in Italy,
Of course.
and they were both desperate to get Lentini on their books.
Wow.
So we have a bidding war on our hands, these two titans of Italian football vying for this, young prodigy.
The tension must have been unbelievable.
I can only imagine. So it was Silvio Berlusconi,
Of course.
the flamboyant owner of AC Milan,
Yeah.
who won the race. He put down a world record fee. I mean, it was an astronomical sum that sent shockwaves through the entire footballing world.
It must have.
Lentini was now the most expensive player on the planet.
Just like that. Wow.
Just like that. And what was the reaction like back in Turin?
Yeah, what did the fans think?
What did the fans think? Well, the Torino fans were devastated.
I bet they were.
Their star player, the symbol of their resurgence, had been sold to a rival.
Right.
So for them, it felt like a complete betrayal. Yeah, I can imagine. And the money from the transfer, while substantial, didn't actually solve Torino's financial problems. In fact, it wasn't very long before the club spiraled into further financial trouble.
Oof. Oh.
So Lentini arrives in Milan, carrying the weight of that world record fee and the hopes of a very demanding fan base.
Yeah, I bet.
So how did he handle that pressure?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
While Lentini had a decent start at Milan, he scored goals and he made assists, he never quite reached the heights that everyone expected of him.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to remember that Milan was a completely different environment to Torino.
Right.
It was much more structured, more professional, less reliant on, individual brilliance,
Right.
and much more focused on a collective data-driven approach.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you can see how a player who thrives on instinct and flair might struggle in that kind of system.
For sure.
Did Lentini's style clash with the tactical approach at Milan?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll definitely delve deeper into. But you've got to remember, this is a story of twists and turns. And just when it seemed like the challenges were mounting for Lentini, fate dealt him a devastating blow.
Oh, no.
A near-fatal car accident.
Wow.
It's a real turning point in his story.
Okay, so we'll come back after the break and we'll find out more about what happened.
Sounds good.
So this car accident, it wasn't just a setback, was it?
No, it was life-changing. I mean...
It changed everything for him.
Absolutely. It really did. He was in a coma, for quite a while. And the effects when he woke up, they were profound.
Yeah. We hear a lot about the physical impacts of these kind of accidents on athletes. But what about that psychological impact?
Yeah.
How did the crash affect Lentini's, mental state, his confidence, his desire even to play football again?
I mean, that's something that often gets overlooked, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The mental side of it.
Yeah.
Just imagine the kind of mental strength it takes to come back from something like that, to look death in the face and then step back onto a football pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, some reports suggest that he did struggle.
Right.
With lingering effects of the crash.
Yeah.
Maybe things like his balance.
Oh, yeah.
Or his decision-making on the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
The player who once just glided past defenders with ease.
Yeah.
Now he was battling these internal demons as well.
And it adds another layer of tragedy to his story, doesn't it? You've got this young man at the peak of his powers.
Yeah.
And he's just brought down by this cruel twist of fate.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, really.
So what about his career after the accident? Was he ever able to recapture that spark that made him so special?
I think the honest answer is he never fully regained the form that made him, a world record signing.
Yeah.
That's not to say he didn't have moments.
Yeah.
Glimpses of the old magic.
Yeah.
But the consistency, the sheer dominance he'd shown at Torino, that was gone.
Yeah.
He did eventually return to Torino. The club that held such a special place in his heart.
I can imagine that return must have been so emotional for him and for the fans who had maybe felt betrayed by his departure.
Absolutely. It was a really significant moment.
Did going back to familiar surroundings help him rediscover any of his form?
I think while the homecoming was undoubtedly emotional, the reality was that both Lentini and Torino were different.
Right.
The club wasn't the force it had been.
Yeah.
And Lentini was a changed player. He couldn't turn back time.
Yeah.
And he couldn't rewrite the past.
And his career, after that point, it became quite nomadic, didn't it?
It did, yeah. He moved from club to club.
Searching for something.
I think so. Yeah, maybe searching for that old magic.
Yeah.
Or maybe just a sense of belonging. It seemed like he was constantly searching, trying to find his place in a game that had changed so much.
Yeah.
There were flashes of brilliance, moments where you thought, yeah, there's the old Lentini.
Yeah.
But they were fleeting.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he was trapped in this constant state of what if, haunted by the memory of what could have been.
Yeah, it's a reminder, isn't it, that sometimes even the most talented individuals, they can be derailed by circumstances that are just beyond their control.
Absolutely. Things that you can't plan for.
And as his career wound down, did he find any peace? Did he find a sense of contentment?
He did eventually find a different kind of fulfillment, I think.
Okay.
Away from the bright lights and the pressure of top flight football. He went back to his roots.
Okay.
Playing with his friend Diego Fuser, another former Torino player.
Right.
At a more, grassroots level, miles away from, packed stadiums and media scrutiny.
There's a certain beauty in that, though. Isn't there a return to just the simple joy of playing?
Absolutely. A return to why he started playing in the first place.
Yeah. And what about Lentini today? What's his life like now, so far removed from the world of professional football?
Well, he lives a quiet life, away from the spotlight. He enjoys playing billiards, spending time with his family. He even tried beekeeping for a while.
Wow.
It's a far cry from, multi-million-pound transfers and streaming headlines.
It really is. It sounds like a life of quiet contentment.
It does, yeah.
A world away from the pressures that must have consumed him when he was playing.
Yeah.
But there was an incident recently, wasn't there?
There was, yeah.
That brought him back into the public eye.
Uh-huh.
Something involving a loan to an alleged organized crime figure.
That's right. Yeah, and it sparked quite a lot of controversy.
Yeah.
Lentini insisted it was just a simple loan, nothing more.
Yeah.
But it did raise questions about his judgment,
Yeah.
maybe even his naivety, some people said.
Mm.
It kind of reinforced this image of him as someone who, despite all the talent and the fame, was still quite vulnerable. Maybe easily taken advantage of.
And it adds another layer of complexity to his story, doesn't it?
It does.
This man who once commanded a world record transfer fee, now caught up in a situation that paints him in a less than favorable light.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what's his legacy? What will Gianluigi Lentini ultimately be remembered for?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's a complicated one, isn't it? I mean, you can't talk about Lentini without mentioning that astronomical transfer fee, the weight of expectation, the incredible highs he reached so young.
But then there's the accident and the struggles to adapt at Milan, and that lingering sense that his talent never really reached his full potential.
Yeah, it's true.
It's almost Shakespearean, this tale of a young hero brought down by fate and circumstance.
It really is.
But he wasn't just a victim of fate, was he? His story kind of unfolded during this period of massive change in Italian football.
Right.
A time when money was just pouring into the game, transforming everything, inflated transfer fees and perhaps, changing the very soul of the sport.
Absolutely. I mean, Lentini's rise really coincided with this move towards greater commercialization.
Yeah.
This focus on marketing and branding and a global audience that was hungry for stars.
And he, with his electrifying style and that record-breaking price tag, he became a symbol of that new era.
For sure.
So you can say he was both a product and a victim of those changes.
Yeah, I think so.
A young talent swept up in this whirlwind of money and ambition and then kind of cast aside when he couldn't meet those inflated expectations.
There's definitely an element of that, and it raises questions about the pressure that's placed on young players, especially the ones who command these huge transfer fees.
Yeah.
The expectation, the scrutiny, the constant comparisons.
It's a lot to deal with.
It's a heavy burden to carry.
And perhaps in a way, his struggles at Milan highlight a wider issue.
What do you mean?
Well, we often focus on the tactical and the technical side of the game.
Yeah.
But what about that human element?
The psychological impact of these big money moves the need to adapt not just to a new team, but a new culture, a new way of life.
Exactly. And Lentini, for all his talent, maybe just wasn't equipped to handle that transition.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a player who thrived on instinct, on freedom of expression. And Milan, with its emphasis on structure and data-driven analysis, well, that was a very different environment.
His story really is a reminder that there's more to football than just tactics and statistics.
Yeah.
There's a human story behind every transfer, every goal, every victory, and every defeat.
For sure.
And sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones that unfold away from the spotlight.
Right.
In those quieter moments of reflection and rediscovery. And Lentini, in his later years, seemed to find solace in that.
He did.
Returning to his roots, playing for the love of the game, rediscovering the joy that had maybe been lost amidst all the pressure and scrutiny.
Yeah, there's something quite beautiful about that.
So where does that leave us? What is Gianluigi Lentini's legacy? Is he a cautionary tale?
A symbol of the dangers of a game, increasingly driven by money and ambition, or is he something more?
I think he's a bit of both, to be honest.
Yeah.
His story serves as a reminder of the human cost of the game's evolution.
Yeah.
The pressures and pitfalls that come with fame and fortune.
Yeah.
But it also reminds us that even in the face of adversity, there's that resilience, that love for the game that can endure and find new ways to express itself.
And ultimately, I think that's what makes his story so fascinating. It's not just about football.
No.
It's about life. It's about the unexpected turns it can take, the challenges we face, and the ways we find meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
Even when the path ahead seems uncertain, Gianluigi Lentini may not have become the legend many predicted.
Right.
But his story, with its highs and lows, its moments of brilliance and shadows of what might have been, it offers a powerful and poignant reflection on the complexities of talent, ambition, and the enduring human spirit.
Well said. And perhaps that's the most important takeaway from this deep dive sorting. Lentini's story encourages us to look beyond the headlines, beyond the transfer fees and the trophies, and remember that behind every athlete, every individual who steps onto the field of play, there's a human story waiting to be told.
And on that note, we'll say thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the captivating world of Gianluigi Lentini.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.